hello everybody. Welcome to the Secrets of ISIS panel here at the virtual Super Friends event. Thank you very much, Dan Johnson, for inviting us to be a part of this. Today we have,
you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Most of you were at our last panel, but in case you weren't, we have our special guests here, which is Brian Cutler, who played Rick Mason. And Joanna Pang-Atkins, who played Cindy Lee.
Yay!
And I just want to point out, sitting in the crowd, being very quiet there because he's muted, is her husband Dick. So, hi Dick, good to see your virtual picture.
And he just came and said, "I need to adjust my lighting, but we can't do it now." So.
Right. There you go. So,
oh, there he is.
There
he is. Hey, Dick.
How you doing, Dick?
So that is
for a second. Doing great, guys. Great to see you, Brian, Andy.
You too.
All right.
Great
so
to
we
be all this together. I'm just a silent observer in the back. I'm going back to my still picture.
I'm going to share the screen here for a minute and just scroll through a couple pictures from ISIS, so you can see what they look like then versus now.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Here we go. So this was the main cast of season 1 of The Secrets of ISIS, which was actually the full name of the TV series. Most people just called it ISIS, but it was actually The Secrets of ISIS. You can see Brian as Rick, who was always in a blazer, or almost always.
Almost always.
Joanna as Cindy Lee, almost always in pigtails, and Joanna Cameron as Isis, who actually had 2 different outfits. This is them with Joanna Cameron in her secret identity as Andrea Thomas. This is one of the promotional photos for
hubba.
Woo! I have a question about one of them that we're not seeing yet. Why Isis was wearing Andrea Thomas's shoes in one of them? I was curious to know why.
Oh yeah. I'm not showing that picture though. So
but you know what I'm saying, right? I was always wondered why that was.
Here's a glamour shot of Brian.
Dud.
This was taken at a Sears studio, right, Brian?
yeah, beauty shots.
Right. And here is this is Joanna Pang with the other Captain Marvel, and we'll let her tell a story about that soon. But just take a look at this picture for now, and we're going to stop the share picture, and we should go back to, there we are. We're back to normal. So ISIS was a production of Filmation Associates or Filmation Studios. It was one of their earlier live action television series after Shazam, of course, which was a spinoff of, and they also worked on Arc 2 and Ghostbusters, and then later did Jason Star Command, and Joel's gonna pop them all up here. First off, let's talk, Brian and Joanna, with you about the early days of ISIS. And the show had been created as a companion piece for Shazam, but it was something that Filmation wanted to own. Many people think DC Comics owns it, or that it was based on a DC character, but it wasn't. So let's talk about how you got involved with the series. I know you may have said this in a previous thing, but this is the ISIS show. So let's talk about this from your perspective. Joanna, you want to go first?
All right, so we did talk about it in the other panel, but it's still sort of interesting because I really didn't know that Isis was an Egyptian goddess, which is how it started. But I got involved through a TV show that I was doing, Patchwork Family. And it was a Saturday morning show. It was syndicated, so it played throughout the country in selected cities, and I was a member of the family. I have to say, I was very young. It was one of my hardest jobs that I ever had because I pretty much had to create my own segment. all the producer had seen me do, he knew that I danced. He had seen me in an off-Broadway musical. So I sang a little, I danced, and he saw me do a monologue where I used a Japanese fan. And I would punctuate the monologue with opening up my fan. Anyway, so when I went on to Patchwork Family, he would just tell me what the theme of the show was, and then he would say, sort of create what you want to do. So sometimes I had other students with me, and I would teach them a dance and rehearsal, and then we would perform it on the show. And I would say to the camera, oh, everybody stand up and dance with us. I was lucky enough to work with John Canemaker, who is an award-winning animator. Sometimes they wanted us to pair up together and do a little song and dance together. He was a storyteller and animator. But anyway, I did that show for about, I don't know, a year and a half, maybe 2 years, every other show, every third show. And the head of CBS Children's Programming called my agent and set up an interview. And I was just told he wanted to meet you. They're interested in seeing you about a show called ISIS. I honestly thought, some of you heard this already, I thought it was about Italian ISIS. Italian ISIS were new to living in New York. And I thought it might be a show where the teenagers go around and steal some ISIS or sell the ISIS or something like that. I didn't know later until it was about an Egyptian goddess. But I went in and met him, and he was great. He just said, oh, we've been watching you, and I've seen you on Patchwork Family, and we think that you might be right for this show in California. Would you be willing to go out there and meet everyone, audition? And I said, yes, of course. It all happened really, really fast. Within a week, I was in California. I did my audition. I was just there for 2 nights. I went in, I did my audition, and I walked out. I'm standing there talking to my agent because he took me to the audition and all of that. And they came out and said, you have the part. So it all happened really, really fast. I flew back to New York. I closed up my apartment and then went back out to Los Angeles. It all happened within like 3 or 4 weeks. And that's it.
And Brian, how about you?
Well, I had been doing an awful lot of guest star work and commercial work, and my agent set up an appointment with Lou and Norm, and I went in and met with them, and we chatted for about, I don't know, half an hour, 45 minutes. It was a real good meeting. I don't even remember reading. It was a very similar situation to Joanna's. It was really like I got hired on the spot. I think I'm the first person that was hired in the show, if my memory serves me correctly, because then they wanted to make sure that the chemistry with everybody was really good. And so I auditioned probably with 200 of the prettiest women in Hollywood that were auditioning for the role of Isis. And it was a hard job, but somebody had to do it. And and I was a rounder then. I was a terrible human being. I've mellowed in my old age. Not really, but I thought I'd say that. Maybe if God's listening, I'll get some points. And then I read with all these women, and they got it down to about 4 or 5, and it was a very lovely thing for me because Lou and Norm, I had a really good relationship with both of them. Anybody that knew them, as Andy did, they were really good guys, and we got along really well. And they wanted me to be part of the selection process, which for me as a young up and coming actor was quite an honor. And narrowed it down to a couple of gals, and we all decided that Joanna Cameron was the perfect woman to play the first female superhero, way before Wonder Woman. And then we all got together with the rest of the cast and got right to work. And I get a kick out of, hearing Michael say, well, we shot this on location. We shot everything on location. It was a location show. And the reason they do that is they can work you 6 days a week instead of 5 if it's a location show, and they don't have to have big fancy sets. We had Filmation Studio. We had the lab was in one of the sound stages there, and then we used a local school. I think it was Reseda High, maybe, where we had to shoot stuff with kids coming out of school or something in a school situation. But we were, and they were long days, weren't they, Joanna?
They were long days.
We put in long days. I mean, we would be on location up in Big Bear and wrap at 11 o'clock at night and have to be back, you know, on the set the next morning. So it was, and people always say, well, how much, that's why I give my students so much hard work to memorize in class, because when you first start out, you know, they give you what they call 5 and under. And so you don't have to memorize a lot. But if I give my people here 4 or 5 pages of dialogue to do in class, when they get a 5 and under audition, it's a piece of cake, you know. But we were memorizing, I don't know, 30, 40 pages, 50 pages a week doing ISIS. And we didn't even think about it. I didn't think about it. Did you think about it, Joanna?
No, and we had to, because we did 2 shows a week.
Yeah,
So,
we shot 2 episodes a week. That's correct. And so we were like the Ever Ready Bunny.
right.
I mean, on Sundays, I would just collapse. I don't know what you did, but I'd be a vegetable on Sunday. And then, of course, you have to start learning the lines for Monday morning.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so really, and in spite of what people think, we did not make a lot of money. As wonderful as Lou, and I hate to speak ill of the dead, but Lou and Norm had short arms and deep pockets. And so we didn't make a lot of money. I wish the show had stayed on. I wish Joanna #1 had stayed on. And I wish the show, as Michael mentioned, had gone on for 5 or 6 years, and I think it could have. But Filmation got more and more and more into animation and sort of let the other stuff go. But that's how I started. I started off as Rick Mason, and they sort of went from there. And I'm glad that I, you know, go ahead. I'm sorry, Angel.
Oh, Brian, one of the questions that Joel had was to ask if there was anyone else we might know who was up for ISIS. I think, wasn't Connie Selica one of the people?
Yeah, Connie Selica was one. Any of the beautiful, svelte, dark-haired, blue-eyed actresses of that era were up for that role, and they all wanted it. They all wanted it. Every one of them wanted it.
There's only one Joanna Cameron.
There was just something about Joanna Cameron that just her physique. She was very athletic. She played a lot of tennis. She, you know, she was a gymnast. She just physically, I think, of all the girls, if you picture a female superhero, you don't want her to be willowy. You want her to be strong, and certainly not masculine, but very strong and athletic. And you know, Joanna Cameron hit all those points. You know,
and that voice too.
And Joanna, you were you were both pretty much age appropriate at that point, weren't you, for what your characters were? Like, you were not a lot older than Cindy Lee.
Right. Yeah, it was great. That's what I said earlier. I was like playing myself. And I mean, you know, I was out of school, but it was like remembering when I was in school, I wanted to be involved. I wanted to be the teacher's helper. I wanted to do everything. I wanted to have a lot of friends. I wanted to help them. If they got in trouble, I wanted to help them. I didn't really want to tell on anybody. I would try to go to them first to do something right, but then sometimes I would have to tell on them so they could get help. But yeah, it was, I liked it. It was fun. It was fun.
Brian, you were a little far from being a teacher, though, I think, right? You mentioned you were a bit of a rounder. You were probably not the moral compass of the group.
Oh, me? No, definitely didn't. No. Hey, just a few years prior to that, I'd spent 2 years on the fire line in Vietnam. I was just getting my legs back, and getting grounded again. No, I grabbed life by the horns when I got back from Vietnam because I was alive.
Right. Thank you for your service, Brian.
Hey,
Yes.
you're welcome. It was my pleasure to be of service.
So let me look at
Moral compass.
yeah.
Not
Let me look over the questions here real quick to see what other questions we have here.
Okay.
Joanna, one of the questions for you is, did you ever meet, we know that you were replaced in the second season by Ronaldo, and none of us have ever gotten, like, even when I talked with Lou about it, there was never kind of a really good answer for it. I think it was a diversity issue, is almost which is strange to me, because you take one character who's diverse and replace it with another character who's diverse.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily help the diversity of the show.
No. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andy, but we
Go ahead.
we did have a person of color as the principal.
Yes.
So it never made any sense to me at all. And I don't care about color at all. I just love Joanna. So
Right.
I didn't want her to be gone. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to say it was actually at Comic-Con where I saw, of course, we were all together, Lou Scheimer, and he was the first one to say to me, "We didn't want to lose you." And the word came from CBS. I mean, that's what he said. And that's all he said about it.
Yeah.
So it was nice that he brought it up and said something, but going in a different direction is just the answer you hear. It's just the pat answer that anyone will give you, from a president to a secretary or whatever level your position is the answer. And it's really not an answer. Just
Right.
they're not going to tell you.
Right. I'm actually looking to see if I can find a picture here from that Comic-Con. I'll bring that up on screen if I can. But let's talk about that, because that was kind of, since when you were on the show, this was the first time that you had a lot of direct interaction with fans who hadn't just grown up on the show, they were now grown up on the show. So can you talk about how that's kind of how do you feel about that that you're now into your second or third generation of fans and so forth?
I actually feel fantastic about it. I think it's wonderful that these people who watched us when they were children have such great memories, and that actually falls into my second career of teaching, because I've been teaching for so long now that I now have teachers that were my students in third and fourth grade, and I've even had a second generation child who I could give her a picture of her dad carrying carrying the flag for the Parade of Nations in my dance residencies. So I've had it with ISIS, I've had it with schoolwork. And the first thing that happened, it didn't happen at Comic-Con because I didn't feel so old. But when I had a teacher that was my student, I came home and I said to my husband who's listening, I said, "Can you believe how old I am to now have a teacher that was my student?" And he was great. He said, "Not old, but memorable." And what was so memorable about that was that every single teacher who was my student in this dance residencies, which we can talk about, but don't have to, it's not ISIS. Every single one of those teachers remembered what country they represented, something about the dance, and if they had a speaking part to introduce the dance. So to me, that was really special. And And for me, with ISIS and the second generation now and third generation, it's creating memories, not only memories that Brian and I have, but memories for them growing up. So I love the fans, and I think it's great that you all have great memories of the show.
Yeah.
I found some pictures here, so we're going to share those real quickly.
Oh boy, make us feel old,
Oh,
Andy. Go ahead.
Oh, now the host has disabled my screen sharing. So
Oh,
as soon as it's shared back with me, I will share some pictures from that.
So anyway, talking about the pictures, I did just want to say something. I have a ton of CBS publicity pictures, and a lot of them I post and people have seen them. However, CBS did pictures of me with no pigtails, but they never used them. And one day, I don't know, maybe we were into the third episode or something, I thought I should be able to change my hairstyle. Nobody wears pigtails or the same hairstyle every single day. And it was a big deal. Everybody knew, Brian knew, the crew knew. I made an appointment with one of the producers to ask about changing my hairstyle. And I went in and, it was a big deal. And I was nervous. And I talked to them about it. And they said, no, Cindy Lee is established with pigtails. We just want pigtails. And that was the end of that. So I don't even know why they took pictures of me with my hair out, because they never used it.
Because
Well,
you were sexy. You were sexy with your hair down. That's
They
why.
hadn't established you yet. So here's a picture of this is from Comic-Con 2007. And there's Ronalda and Joanna and Brian. Here's Brian signing autographs for fans. You got a lot of product in the hair there, Brian.
I did.
I don't know who the there's a some Japanese character in the background right there, but they're actually showing off an ISIS T-shirt underneath their costume.
Oh yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
And then here is this is a group shot of a lot of the Filmation folks with Lou Scheimer, and as well as a couple stars from Space Academy and Ghostbusters are there as well.
Craig Littler, good buddy of mine.
Yeah.
Great guy.
All right. So how do we get back from unshare screen? I have some other pictures that we'll share here in a minute, but in the meantime, let's talk about your favorite episodes. What are your favorite episodes of the show?
Oh boy, Joanna.
Well, my absolute favorite is Fool's Dare. It wasn't the first show that aired, but it was the first one we shot. And the reason why I liked it so much is because it turned out that I really love riding bikes. I mean, I rode a bike as a kid, and I hadn't ridden a bike in a long time, but you just get back on and you ride. I really liked it. We take my father-in-law to Atlantic City all the time, or we used to, not now during the pandemic. I love riding on the boardwalk there, so I still ride bikes. I liked the two young boys became friends. It was fun to ride with them. I liked climbing the fence, jumping into the junkyard. I just like that one for me and for Cindy Lee. But I think one of the most special episodes, of course, and I think a lot of people say this, was Lucky, about the dog dying. And they hadn't addressed that subject yet so much in so many children's shows. And I thought it was just really, really well done.
Brian, how about you?
I did. Every episode had something special in it. It's hard for me to say. Scuba Dooba Dooba, the diving one was kind of fun. I mean, I can't just pick one. I can't. It's like when you do an interview and somebody, or I do a blog and somebody says, well, what's your favorite role you've ever played? I don't know. I mean, I love acting. So even if I hadn't had a successful career in film and television, I'd still be doing theater somewhere because I love acting. I just did a film shameless self-promotion. I just did a lead in a film last year, and it was doing really great in the festival circuit until COVID hit. And so, you know, I executive produced it, and I wasn't going to be in it, but the two writers said, "You're going to be in it." I said, "I don't want to be in it." And he said, "Well, it's too late. We wrote a part for you." And it's about PTSD, anti-war, and pro gay rights and all that stuff that's so taboo to talk about today. But and everybody in it was a vet, because it was about vets. I play the father of two young men, one who comes back from Afghanistan with PTSD, and his younger brother wants to follow in his footsteps. And we all tell him, no, don't go, but he goes. And it starts with me finding out that my youngest son was just killed in Afghanistan. So it's a comedy. No, it's
Brian,
not.
what's the name of the film?
It's called Footsteps.
Footsteps. All right.
Yeah.
We will
And
look.
I don't know where, but my point being is, see, I don't really care if I'm ever in front of a camera again. It's that these two writers, and it was two of my students that wrote the film, and they said, well, you have to be in it because we wrote a part for you. But I do everything every day that I tell my actors to do every day, because I want to tell them to do something I'm not willing to do.
Right.
And so it was a pleasure to be back on the boards, as they say. What I miss more than anything else, and I'm sure Joanna would agree with me, is doing musical theater in a live theater in front of a live audience. That's what I love the most. That's what I miss the most. But if if a role came up, then somebody said, oh, you've got to do this, I'd do it. But my job right now is directing, producing, and coaching wonderful actors to spend their life working this crazy business.
So we have a couple of questions here that I'll answer, and then we'll get to some questions for them. Kenneth asks, which are the ways one can view Secrets of ISIS if you don't have the DVD? There is a budget DVD that is out there that has like 10 episodes on it. It doesn't have any of the extras, none of the interviews, none of the morals, none of the stuff, but it is at least cheaper than the actual set. Unfortunately, there's no legal way to watch them without the DVDs. There are things up on YouTube, and I believe some of the episodes are out there on torrents and so forth, but right now there's no legal way to watch them. The rights to the show, Vincent asks who owns the rights to it and any chance of a revival. Right now the rights to the show are owned by DreamWorks, which is owned by Universal, which is in the process of lots of different changes right now. But DreamWorks owns the rights to it, and they have thus far been unwilling to release it streaming or anything like that. I suspect within a year we will probably see that situation change, and that the shows will be up on a streaming platform. But it all kind of depends on who's going to own Universal, and therefore who's going to own DreamWorks, and for them to realize that they're worth something, because they don't really think of the shows as being worth a whole lot. In terms of a revival, I know that ISIS is going to be in the Black Adam movie, but it will be DC Comics version of ISIS, not the television version of ISIS, which we know is similar but not the same person. So I wanted to again, you guys are seeing some things that have never been released. We didn't use them on the DVD. Some of these pictures I'm showing you before, and some of the pictures I'm about to show you, were not on the DVD. And these are from the collection of Joanna, who has a great collection of pictures. So I'm going to show you some. And Joanna and Brian, when you see these, if you want to just pop off with some memories of some of these people or these scenes, there's like five of the pictures here I'm going to show. And just tell us what your memories of filming these specific scenes are, and who some of the other people are. And here we go. And I don't see what you guys see, so I'm hoping you guys are seeing the pictures large enough that you can actually see them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember this. So the blonde is Jill, and Jill was Joanna Cameron's stand-in for certain things, and she did some of the stunts, and Joanna Cameron did most of her stunts, but Jill did some of them. She was great. We were very friendly, and I don't know how many years ago, but we are connected on Facebook. So I still see her on Facebook, and she was really nice. I have great memories of Jill. And
Is she married now?
she's married, and she's married to someone in the business on crew who might be props or set design. I can't remember. And
Yeah, her name was Jill Kaufman.
Jill Kaufman, yes. And
Yeah.
they also are tango dancers. So she posts pictures of them doing, beautiful, romantic, sexy tango pictures.
Oh, how fun.
Very
Jill?
into animal activism and taking care of animals. And I think she has animals on her property where she lives.
Which
And
is Jill on the right or left?
Jill
She's the
is
blonde.
on the left.
Blonde, okay.
Scarf. And the other one was our nurse. I can't think of her name, but I know I have it written down.
Yeah, I can. That's Jim in the middle. That's Jim McKay.
Oh,
He was sort of a PA, gopher, do all kinds of stuff. He was a wonderful guy. He was a good buddy of mine.
nice. Yeah. Oh,
Oh my goodness gracious.
Brian, is that
That's
Jill?
that's Joanna Pang-Atkins. That's my first wife.
Yes, I remember her really well.
Yeah, and she's gone to heaven now. And that's me, and that's my baby sister, Lisa. That's my sister, Lisa.
Is that literally your sister?
Yes,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's my ex-wife, my true love, Joanna, and my baby sister.
Oh, wow. That's a great picture. I don't have that
Yeah.
picture.
That is a nice picture. Where'd that come from?
Yeah.
That-
Where did you
that
get that, Andy?
No, that came from you, Joanna. I scanned it from you.
You did? Oh my goodness. So it's obviously in one of my scrapbooks. Yeah.
Right,
My,
right.
my goodness gracious.
Wow.
Here's a shot from one of the few special effects scenes.
I think
Good
that's
driver.
from Girl Driver when
Yes.
the gas can tips over and I think something ignites it. I'm guessing.
Yes. Mhm.
I'm not sure.
I think it
Leonard's
is
car.
too. Joel's nodding his head. He says it is.
Mac Leonard's car knocked it over, the gas cans.
That's isn't that Arnold Evans?
Arthur Nadell.
That's Art Nadell and you, my dear.
That's me. He had to have directed that episode because he's coming over to tell me something.
Cool hat.
Well, hat, either probably keeping the sun off my face so I'm not sweating. I don't know. I don't remember wearing a hat in the show, so it's probably to keep the sun off my face. Yeah. Oh, now this was interesting because
Tut.
I didn't remember that I ever really had a lot of interaction with Tut, but I did. I had a whole conversation with Tut trying to teach him how to say something. Yeah.
Yes.
I was telling him that he was
An eagle.
an eagle, right?
I'm an eagle, Tut. I'm an
I'm an
eagle.
eagle.
All right,
What are you
and then
teaching him, Sid?
here's the Brian, here's your sexy shot.
Uh-oh. Oh, see, that's what I said, scuba dooba hubba dubba.
Yeah.
And then who were the two here with you, Cindy, Joanna?
They were the special guests that week, and Brian
Steve and
was
Nancy.
saying stressing all the safety issues with scuba diving, and he was the one who disregarded all the safety issues. And the young girl next to Brian was his girlfriend, trying to tell him that he had to try to follow the rules to keep safe. And he got in trouble because he went diving by himself and got into trouble, and ISIS had to come and rescue him, of course.
And we can actually see in the picture that as you guys are filming, there are families just like visiting the beach in the background. And
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
it wasn't a closed set ever, was it?
Oh, no, 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 no. No, that would have cost too much. Closed set, you need police for a closed set, Andy.
Right. So we have a question to you, Joanna, from Lisa, and she wants to know how many Asian actors and actresses have asked you for acting advice or dancing advice, either when you were on the series or since, because you were one of the very early Asian American regulars on a show.
Well, that's an interesting question, because our show was diverse, but honestly, we didn't really think about diversity and different cultures or anything. We were just there working and doing the show. You know, the interesting thing, what's just referring something to what Brian said, when I moved to New York, I also moved to New York to really pursue theater work. And I ended up doing some theater, but I ended up doing almost all TV and lots of TV commercials. And there were a group of Asian young women, and we all knew each other. Because we would all be the same people at the same audition all the time. Some of them, like Lori Tan Chin, has gone on to become very famous. She's been well known for a long time in a TV series and film and lots of different things. But we all knew each other and we all got along. There was really, yes, we were all competing for the same parts, but we're still all friends.
Yeah.
And sometimes, actually, in one of the theater productions that I did, I wasn't the oldest one in the group, but I was the one that was married and had a baby. And so a lot of the girls then looked to me for advice. How do you keep up a career with a husband and a child? And here I was doing this big production in New Jersey at Paper Mill Playhouse. I was involved in the show for a whole year, from the staged reading with 6 people to 10 people for a workshop into the multi-million-dollar production. And I just say, you do what you love and you make it work out. But during the ISIS days, there wasn't really that much talk about race and diversity.
No.
So we just all loved, Brian and I became close friends. I remember his wife, his kids. I remember going to your house once and helping scrape up the nails because you were putting down a new carpet or something. I mean, the kind of things we just hung out together with family and friends. But there wasn't a lot of talk about diversity. But the Asian community in New York, the women, the young women, all up for the same parts, all competed with one another. But as friends, you didn't feel that tension between them.
Right.
Well, it's interesting that you should say that, Joanna, because one of the things that I stress to all of my actors that I coach and train is that you're not in competition with anybody but yourself.
Exactly.
You have your own essence. There's no one else like you. So don't try to be like somebody else because they already have that somebody else. Just be you.
Right.
Work on you, and the rest just falls into place.
The other interesting thing is that back in the day when I was very young and going out on auditions and taking dance classes, taking voice lessons and all of that, I had an agent. I had an agent when I moved to New York already. That was already set. But the casting paper at the time was Backstage.
Mhm.
Backstage was always very specific. We're looking for an age range of this. We're looking for a blonde young woman with blue eyes. At that time, even though the casting sheet might have been very specific, I wanted to meet people and I would go. I didn't care what they said. If I was in the right age range, I would go to the interview or audition. Now, did I get the part for the blonde hair, blue-eyed girl? No. However, the next job I had might have been from that person that I met at the audition. And now you would not be able to do that. It wouldn't be acceptable. But so much of my work was from people that I met where I didn't get cast, but hopefully, I mean, I was memorable enough so they would call me a month later, 2 months later, or they would put my picture in a pile that would say, oh yeah, oh, she was interesting, maybe we'll use her for something else. Now that wouldn't be acceptable. Now you couldn't do that. Yeah, but it was different then. It wasn't even so much about diversity. It was just get out there and meet people.
Yeah.
Did you guys do the stills? This is from Joel. Did you shoot the stills, the promotional stills, before or after you had started filming?
Oh, in the midst of filming.
Yeah, and there was no before. There was just an after, and then an altogether.
Right.
And Brian, did you grow the mustache for the part? Did they want the part to have a mustache, or did you come in with one?
No, that was who I grew my first mustache, my first tour of duty in Vietnam, and it's been there ever since.
I know the feeling. I think mine is predates my birth.
Yeah, I shaved mine off once several years ago, and my wife at the time, I was on a business trip and I came back with it shaved off, and I got in the car at the airport and she took one look at me and said, grow it back. Not welcome home or piss off, just grow it back. So, yeah, so that's the only time it's been off since 1966.
Wow. So Conroy has an interesting question here that hadn't even occurred to me. Do you think that the educational atmosphere of ISIS has influenced both of you to become teachers now?
Well, that's interesting, but I don't think for me, because I said much earlier, my mother taught at San Francisco Ballet, plus she had her own ballet studio, and she actually made me start teaching when I was a teenager, and I didn't really want to. But once I started, I really enjoyed it. But then I stopped teaching because I was getting more work and I moved to New York and all of that. But no, I started teaching because I had a great opportunity to travel with an Asian dance company. And I traveled around the world, but not everywhere, but of many, many different countries. And then after I got married and had a son, when my son was, actually we lived in Hungary for a while, and he went to the American International School. He just made the cutoff for pre-K, and the principal was from New York. And my husband was doing a film, and he was, when you're on a set, and he was a producer, and you work 24 hours a day, and when you're not working, your mind is on film. So I went and met the principal, and I said, I do a lot of dancing. I traveled around the world. Do you want me to just volunteer and do some international dancing with the pre-K class? That's where my son is. And he was thrilled. He said yes. And I started teaching in my son's pre-K class, and then he wanted me to teach first grade and second grade and third grade. And I did it as a volunteer. And after that, when we moved back home to New Jersey and my son started kindergarten, I actually went to the principal there and said, would you like me to come in and teach every Friday and do some international dancing with a kindergarten class? And she said, yes. I wanted my son to experience the different cultures and dance with me. And in a school situation, I might say at home, oh, come on, dance with me. But I wanted it in a school situation. I wanted to introduce different dances from around the world. And that was so successful that when it came time for kindergarten graduation, the director of the school asked my husband to write a little kindergarten play to incorporate the dances. So that's when the beginning of my dance residency started and how I fell into teaching, which has now grown tremendously. But yeah,
Hmm.
now it's my passion. I love
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it had any influence on me. What influenced me to become an acting coach was my mentor, my acting coach for 12 years was Charles Eric Conrad, who was the best acting coach on the West Coast for 40 years. And I could give you a list of stars that came out of his studio, but you wouldn't believe it, but it's true. And I was young and cocky, you know, and I thought I knew everything. And because I'd been working since I was 5, like Joanna, and you get pretty sure of yourself. But when I met Charles, I realized I didn't know anything about film, and I'd already done a ton of film and TV work. But he opened my eyes to a process that is so simple yet so eloquent. That when I was living in Kansas City, because I went there to star in a show at a theater, and the gal that ran the Missouri Repertory Theater, which is one of the best, one of the four of the best rep companies in the country. She asked me if I would sign a contract, and I did. And that 2-year contract turned into a 14-year contract. But while I was there, I noticed there was nobody teaching acting for film. So I bought a couple cameras and I got a mixing board. And because Charles always taught with cameras, because his belief was, and I believe this, learning to act for the camera without a camera is like learning to ride a horse without a horse. And so I started out teaching acting in the Midwest in Kansas City. And I was blessed with Charles' input, because not only was he my coach for 12 years, but he became my very dear friend and mentor for 40. And he passed the baton to me, and I teach the Conrad process. And I can say very proudly that even during this pandemic, I've had students of mine that have starred in, several have starred in feature films, several have co-starred in feature films. Some have been cast as reoccurring regulars on series, and it's all because of this process. And so I agree with, I love to teach. When I can take somebody that has never done any of this stuff and mold them into somebody that can break your heart when they read 3 or 4 lines. That's the same feeling Joanna gets when she takes a youngster and teaches them a quick dance routine, and they work it and work it and work it. All of a sudden they're dancing. There's no greater gift or thrill, as far as I'm concerned, than to do that for another human being. None. So I love coaching. I love teaching. I love it.
We have a bunch of other questions, but we're unfortunately running out of time. So Joanna and Brian, I know, have been reading some of the comments, and both of you are available on, or you're on Facebook, so people can interact with you.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that both of you have answered your fans in the past.
Yep.
And do you both have autographed photos that are available through the convention?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know they're reasonably priced, so
Yes.
everybody
Yeah.
should.
I don't think you can gouge people that have been in love with you and had a love fest for 40 years. You know, I don't even care about, I don't even care about postage. Everybody over the years that sent me requests for a picture, and anybody that says they can't find me isn't looking very hard, because I'm pretty easy to find. But even if they send me a couple of dollars for postage and an envelope with stamps on it, when I send them a picture, I send it back to them. I just, you know, yeah, we have pictures available. They're very reasonably priced. And Joanna, if you run out, I got a shitload of pictures.
Okay.
If you need some, because we never get invited to Comic-Cons, and it's sad. So I've got a room full of pictures, and
Well, that is
yeah.
one of the, before you swear again, Brian, that is one of the, that's one of
told
the
you-
questions that
I
was
told you I'm a
asked.
rounder. What?
Yeah. That is one of the questions that was asked, is what can people do to get you to Comic-Cons? And this is a question more for the fans. If you have local comic conventions that bring in actors and performers, tell them you want them, because Joanna and Brian and many of the people who've appeared there this weekend are absolutely happy to interact with fans. And I will tell you that they give of their time and energy generously and so forth. So we're going to wrap up, but before we do, I want to, for those of you who weren't at the last thing, or even those of you who were, I want to point out that there is something coming up that both Brian and Joanna were involved with. And so I'm going to show that to you right now. Oh, I can't show it to you right now. They have taken me off screen sharing. Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. Nope, still not there.
You're welcome, Joel. Thank you for being who you are.
Okay, so here we go. This is coming up in the next month or so. This is a virtual table. Yeah, this is a virtual table read for charity of Justice League Mortal, the unfilmed Justice League movie script. And Brian is playing Aquaman, and Joanna Atkins, Pang-Atkins, is one of the narrators of this. And coming up in our next panel, Shannon Farnan returns to the role of Wonder Woman. So that'll be coming up soon. In the meantime, everybody, please give a big wave and a thank you to Joanna and Brian for sharing their time and
Our
sharing their
pleasure.
talents for all these years on ISIS. And I just happened to find this thing. Let me move my beard. I was digging around in a box, and I found, does this have any value, do you think? It looks pretty.
To us, it does. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Joanna and Brian. Any last
Okay.
words? Any
Thank you,
last
Andy.
words?
Well, we'll be back tomorrow doing another panel, right?